All right, I welcome you guys to another wonderful session. And in this particular video, we are going to be talking about multi-touch and third touch. Without further ado, let's dive into what we have for the particular video. So, all right, so now what is multi-touch and third touch? What is multi-touch and third touch? So now we are now proceeding into the concept of a patterns, and I'll be using a bullish pattern for this particular example. Let's stop over here. The concept of the multi-touch and third touch is very, very important because it allows you understand your patterns properly. Sorry about that. Let me just give another shot on this drawing. All right. So now I'm using a bullish pattern for this particular example. So now in every pattern, that forms, the concept of the multi-touch and third touch talks about price always breaking a pattern at the third touch most of the time. So now what does this mean? So now the first point, which is this point, is the first touch. Then the second point, let's say you have two lows. The second low is the second touch. Then at the third touch, which in this case now, let me just redraw that, please. Pardon my drawing skills. All right. So second touch. So at the third touch, we're anticipating that price breaks the pattern. Price literally breaks the pattern for a go to the low. This is a bullish pattern now for this, for God's sake, right? This is a bullish pattern. I'm literally not drawing it properly, right? So this is the first touch, this is second touch. So at the third touch, which is supposed to be over here, right? We're expecting that price will break the pattern and then keep dropping till it gets to the low of the pattern. So that's the concept of the multi-touch and touch. So this is also applicable, right, with the eyes of the pattern. This is a bullish pattern now, as you can see, it's facing upward, right? It's facing upward and it's looking like a ladder resting to a right side wall. So that's how you know bullish patterns. Why bearish pattern usually look like ladders resting to the left side wall, as you guys can remember, right? So yeah, so now first touch, right, which is the first low, you must at least see two lows, which is the concept of the multi-touch, right? See two lows form before you can say that you want to draw your pattern, right? So and these two lows, mind you, the second low, for you to start saying that okay, you want to anticipate a third touch to break, the second low must at least break the eye, right? This low now, when it's finally going upward, it must at least break the eye, which is this eye of the eye that formed after the first low formed. It must break it. It's very, very important. If price did not break it, as you guys can see, this particular point, price went upward, and this eye now that formed over here is totally above this eye. It formed a higher eye that is higher than this eye, right? So and that is what we can literally call a break of structure, because now it broke this structural eye for this example. For the case of bearishness is the reverse, right? So let me just invert the scale. It must break the last load that formed, the load that formed after the eye of the first touch literally formed. This is the first touch. Now the first low is what you call the first touch, right? So after that first low form, right, you are looking at it, then a high form, and then price come all the way upward. So after price come all the way upward, before you can start anticipating a third touch, you must at least see before you can start anticipating that price break, at the third touch, you must at least see that the next low that is forming is lower than the previous low, right? Then you can now say that yes, you have a valid pattern, right? You have a valid pattern. And after you say that you have a valid pattern, then you can now say that okay, you can now start anticipating that at the third touch over here, that price will break. Not that maybe price, let's say this low now, for example, price did not even get it, it was just dropping and it did not get anywhere yet. Then you start anticipating that okay, yeah, at the third touch, which is price started reversing from somewhere around here. It did not even break below this low at the touch loss, then it now break. Yeah, well, market can do this, right? It can also do that sometimes, but that is not always the case, right? Most of the time, proper patterns, right? And most of the patterns that play out, you must see it break the last low that form, after the first touch, which is the first low, right? So you must see the second touch break the low, and then you can now start anticipating your third touch to form to break this particular pattern, right? To break this particular pattern, and after breaking the pattern, you're anticipating your target is always the eye of a pattern. Now in this case, it's always should always be the eye of a pattern. And for bearish case, right, you should break the eye, right, the eye that formed after the first touch formed. The touch now is to the lows, right? It's to the lows. It's very, very important to the lows, right? Because for bearishness is to the lows. For bullishness, we're anticipating that price goes upward, so it's to the highs, right? So to the highs. I don't know if you're getting it. So that's just it. You must make sure that you break it, and that's when you can now start anticipating a third touch to break lower, right? And the target is always the low of the overall pattern, right? This is the pattern. So the target for bearish case is the low of the overall pattern, and for bullish case, right, is always the high, right? For bullish case is always the high of the overall pattern, right? After price breaks the pattern over here, anticipating that it gets to like a overall of a pattern, right? So, and that's all for multi-touch and third touch, right? You must make sure that you have at least two touches, right? And the concept around this, the first touch is that, okay, the last eye that form for bearish case now, the last eye that form, right, before the second touch form, the second low that, we can start drawing the pattern from that, okay, yeah, we have a pattern forming, must be broken, right? Must be broken. Then you can now anticipate that, okay, yeah, this pattern is complete. And sometimes it can give you more than two touches, more than three touches. Like the third touch won't break. It will just get here and then it will reverse upward, forming a fourth touch. It can happen like that, right? So when it happens like that, it doesn't really mean, right? You still anticipate your entry pattern, which is where we are literally going to next. From now, you still anticipate your entry pattern, and you enter at the fourth touch now will now be where you'll be expecting the break to come from. And sometimes, it will just create a new third touch. So the new third touch is when it breaks slightly below the pattern, then it now reverses back upward to break a high again. Then you can now change the direction of where you draw your low from the first low to the new low. So this will now be your third touch instead, and you'll be anticipating a break of the pattern at the third touch. And this happens over and over and over again in the market, right? It happens if we enter into the real life chart, you see that this is how the market literally operates, right? At the third touch, it's always breaking. For example, we have this pattern, right? So we have this pattern, this expanding triangle. Now, for example, it's an expanding triangle. So we have our first touch over here, we have our second touch over here. As you see, for our second touch to be valid, it has to break, right? It has to break the eye that formed, right? Now this is a bearish, pattern, right? This eye formed last after the first touch, right? And as you can see, price broke that eye successfully over here. So we can now say that we have a pattern. So we are anticipating a third touch after that break over here, after this inception point. And as you can see, at the third touch, it literally broke downward. This was the third touch, guys. Let me just point that out. So this was where we have that third touch, right? So on the third touch, that was where it broke, and from the break, it just continued going downward to the bottom of the pattern. And that's all as regards the multi-touch and third touch of sharp patterns. So now in the next video, we are going to be going into something else that is also much more interesting, and I want you guys to stay tuned to that particular video. That's all for this particular video, and I'll be looking forward to see you guys in the next part.